It is Friday afternoon, so it is Friday afternoon. It's the last keynote from the EuroSPI, which is named Balanceability is a new agile. It's a word, if you cannot speak it, you have to go maybe to some Wikipedia. But first, the introduction is of Mr. Alexander Muck. He studied mathematics at the University in Erlangen, Nuremberg, and then in Cambridge in the United States. In the year 2000, he joined the SUSE Linux company. In 2004, so 11 years ago, he joined Elektrobit Automotive GmbH, where he worked as a software architect, as a quality manager, and as a safety manager. Now he's leading the COC, so the Center of Competence for Software System Engineering, dealing with systems such as quality, safety, security, and reliability systems. He's a SPICE assessor and a safety assessor, and he enjoys working with people. He learned it into other keynote people, is the value of the company in the software organization to improve management, engineering, and other processes. So I'm giving the word to Alexander now for his keynote.
Okay, so last keynote, half of the conference is already at the airport, probably already. So a few years ago, Richard asked me I should give a keynote, and I told him, yeah, no, look at my hair, see any gray hair? Then he said no. I said no gray hair, no keynote. Still no gray hair, but an important topic. And it's kind of complicated to see from up here. I'm a little bit sick, so I can speak so loud as I can now. Good. So it's about agile. You see, I have here marks and I make a big A. That's important because how to get rid of that. Good. So first 2 minutes about the company, then about the attacker. This is something we need to defend against. They're really making things worse. Things that are really no-goes, then a little attempt at balancing things, and then beyond agile. So agile is then gone away. Okay, so about the title. You know, there's a TV series, Orange is the New Black. So that is why I chose it. And of course it's not trademarked, but I put a trademark there because during reading about agile stuff, I saw so many trademarked process models that, okay, you can trademark any bullshit. And perhaps the SPICE community should trademark and patent everything. So the use of a base practice is, I don't know, 10 cents per project, per people. You're laughing, but that is exactly what the agile people are doing, right? If you use scaled agile, you pay really per project. That is a really brilliant business idea. Okay, so first the easy things about the company. Oh yeah, see, it does not show any red.
Yes, it's a management beamer.
It's a management beamer, yeah, okay. Okay, so we're about 1,000 employees and have a daughter company with another 600. So this is financial stuff. The most important point here is more than 1 billion embedded devices. So we sell more operating systems than Microsoft every year. It's just we're not getting the money for each copy because, you know, it's car industry. We sell once and then they duplicate it a million times. So this is where I'm coming from. Here, car infrastructure, and somehow it is not showing all of the slides. There's something here. Did you have this problem before?
Yes.
No? Yes? It's the resolution, or?
Try to lower. Do you know how to fix it?
Well, lower the resolution.
800 probably works.
Let's go down. 1 second. It's Microsoft. Takes some time. So I go down to 800. No. So I wonder if we have these problems in our century too. Well, so if that doesn't work, we can simply... Is it better if I use don't know presentation mode? No. So how to proceed? It's a good question.
On the other computer it works. I can give you a USB stick.
Yeah, perhaps you use the computer.
Can you look into that? So I'm sorry for the delay.
Don't worry.
Wir wollten einen anderen Sessel mal raus.
Bitte was? Modern technology works. Ah, there it is. Yeah. Okay. So here's some facts. I come from this car infrastructure stuff. So basically, the infrastructure for autonomous driving, fallback systems, ACLD operating systems, all these kinds of things. But that's boring. Now go to the content. So what I experience currently is agile consulting. So, and here's something you sometimes find. I call them agilistas. And yeah, like, you know. And the fun thing is, there is really a definition in the, you can read it probably, here it's green, yeah, unfortunately it's the Urban Dictionary. That's a practitioner of agile software development who's fanatical about hewing to the Agile Manifesto. So kind of religious people you can even talk to. And these are, of course, enemies. They publish things like the following. So do you think people are the problem and processes the solution? Or do you think process is the problem and people are the solution? And these are the two options. So if you take here, they call you Taylorist thinker. If you take here, they call you lean thinker. So, but my third box is, and it's green here. It's, yeah, but I think this is where I put my mark. And here's a story how to sell Scrum. And there's a lot of interesting things in it. So it's from a book, it's fairly new, and I did not expect Vinnie van Solingen to write that, but he did, so I can cite it. I try to keep the agile texts without names as far as possible. I don't want to do name blaming, because when they published their text initially, this was good intent. Some of them, good intent. Some of them. Here, the expected return of investment of Scrum is usually around 1 to 10. Okay? Then it goes on. The average cost for introducing it, including training and stuff for every employee, is $7,500. The consultant has a big smile now, you know, because that marketing technique is called framing. Once that number is on the table, it won't ever be away. Maybe 7,000 then, right? After purchasing discussions, but that's the number to beat. With an ROI of 1 to 10, the realistic return, he really used the word realistic, on this investment is $75,000 per employee per year. Wonderful. So let's say we have 1,000 developers, 75,000 per year, that makes 75 million return on investment per year. That is amazing. And it's totally independent of context. So you can do this in Romania, in India. So suddenly someone who earns $30,000 a year, brings you 75,000 just by introducing Scrum. Phenomenal. And this is of course not enough. You need to kill the manager, and they say the most added value is the increase in agility, whatever that means. Yeah? Respond to change quickly, blah blah. If you don't do that, sometimes you end up paying the ultimate price. Okay, so that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and it's on one page. Now management is down on its knees, and you get the money. Okay. So it has no baseline, it does not tell you anything about how your organization currently performs. So it's the same return of invest. And yeah, I think I made a remark here. And he goes on to cite a link, and when you follow the link, don't see the comments, there was a web page with other ROI calculations, and there was mentioned that Scrum was 1 to 9, and extreme programming was 1 to 37 or something like that. So why are you writing a book about Scrum? Why not XP? Yeah, if that has an even higher return on invest. Okay, so that is the management setup. And the point is, it's totally irrelevant of the company you do consulting with. And that is a good thing for a consultant, because you need to sell the same solution to many customers. The same slides, the same trainings, the same things. So, I don't know your problem, but I have a solution for you. That is perfect. And there's also a nice saying, there's always a well-known solution to every known human problem, neat, plausible, and wrong. Exactly. And most of the times, these consultants are just wrong and don't realize the damage they're doing to the organizations they're visiting. Okay, this is how they sell it. So this is the time, that's over time. So early times you had programmers. They were really called programmers. You know, the term software engineering needed to be invented. When was the time? Well, when was the first conference the term software engineer has been used?
1964, NATO conference.
Yeah, there is an American reference and a European reference, yeah. But it's in the beginning to the end of the 60s. And it had no content, had no idea. Until then you had big machines with specialists and nothing else. There was no knowledge about process requirements or whatever. And then the decades came, the process people came, the software engineering people came, and all this unfolded. So at that time we had programmers, and they are somehow productive. And then came Taylorism, command and control, and we placed them into some kind of big machine, made them slaves, and the productivity goes down. And since then we kept software engineers in cages and did all sorts of wrong things, and then Agile comes. Yeah? So Agile, I don't know if you can see this here, Agile somehow experienced Scrum a factor of 10, and now the new guys realize that they can do all kind of consulting shit. So they even say 25 times or 20 times, it doesn't matter. So you have Lean, Scrum, and DevOps, and other terms. So that is brilliant. So that is a mind-setting curve for management. Have you ever seen that by a consultant? Never? You nod your head. So I've seen that multiple times in multiple organizations, and there is something interesting. There have been traditional ideas about consulting, and they were not that bad. And you know Jerry Weinberg? And he said he has a wonderful book, The Secrets of Consulting. It's really perfect. I mean, if you look at his age at that time, that you can write such wisdom in so few pages, unbelievable. But he said, if you're a consultant, never promise more than 10% improvement. And the next rule was, if you happen to achieve more than 10% improvement, make sure it is not noticed. And that is, if you go to management and tell them, I made you 50% better, you in fact effectively say, you're stupid. Because if there's potential of 50%, they could find something themselves, right? You just say you make a bad job. So earlier times we were modest, and there was some form of honest consulting with technical expertise. You know what you do, you know the effects. Nowadays, that doesn't matter anymore. Nowadays, you show this. Okay, so here's another example from our people. That is also important for books. So if you want to publish something today, you make it like that. You write a book about agile management, agile innovation, agile requirements, agile testing, agile human resources, name it, agile business improvement, whatever, doesn't matter. Any idiot can write a book today without much knowledge about the domain, put agile in front of it, and that's it. And the book sells. Yeah, don't laugh. The point is, most of these books, you buy these books, and then you read them, you're done after 3 hours. There's no, there's no intellectual work necessary to digest these works. And that has been different 20 years ago. Many of the software engineering books 20 years ago, you need to read them over and over again. You need to think, and it takes time to sink in. So there was some kind of intellectual content. Most of the authors today don't have that. But they offer, of course, agile something training. And that goes like this. One day agile, one day something, half day merge and discussion, and half day certificate. Nothing without certificate. And the point is, after you learn to be super agile, you don't even have to prepare as a consultant for that. Because now you do group work and let them find themselves, they're now self-empowered, and you can let them discuss what could the term project management be in an agile world. Find yourself, make proposals. Okay, so the point is, the agile and certificate parts can be performed by consultants with only moderate knowledge of something, of project management or whatever. And that is very efficient, because now you have your super agile coach who only does that part. You have your certificate parts that only does that. And effectively, your expert on requirements engineering can now do 3 times the amount of training. Isn't that perfect? Fantastic, right? So that is value for the customer. So the traditional outcome was, I send someone there, I get someone who gets requirements engineering for 3 days. Today I send someone there, gets requirements engineering for 1 day. That's the practical setup. And consultants love that because that multiplies their income. Yeah, have you experienced these kinds of... I don't want to look at people who are also consultants. I don't want to offend anyone, okay? That's not the point. It's just, we things. Okay, here I found something, I marked it with satire. It's the Anti-Agile Manifesto. And they say it's a really good language. We've suffered through countless consultants and hours of meetings. Through this, we discovered that Agile is simply the obfuscation of common sense, the bewitchment of the mind through language. We learned that epics are just projects, stories are just use cases, sprints are really just work, stand-ups are meetings, iterations are versions, backlogs to-do list, backlog grooming is just planning, burn-down charts are earned value charts, velocity is really just output, and the word they couldn't change is tasks. You know, tasks in fact are just tasks. And of course it needs the lower statement. That is why the concepts on the left are often presented as groundbreaking or unique. They are merely weakly defined versions of those on the right. There's some truth in it, so it's satire. Yeah, but there's a website, you know, I put many links in the presentation.
Which we can see.
Which you can't see because if you take the red out of the green. Yeah, I was also laughing when I saw that. So that is the setup. That is the enemy, and we need to kill that enemy. Here are no-goes. Good. I like that slide, and I put it in many talks. It's from Capers-Jones. I hope you know Capers-Jones. No? The expert on software metrics. It's a wonderful book, Economics of Software Quality. So I met him once, and he's a really nice guy. He's full of numbers. So if you want to meet someone who really understands numbers and software, go to Capers-Jones.
Some years ago, he was a keynote speaker.
Ah.
It was fine.
So,
Quite absolutely brilliant.
Good. So this is in this book. So if you don't control the outcome or the output, you will end up with a zone of chaos. Yeah. So no upfront requirements, no architecture, you end up in the zone of chaos. Right? If you do it in a traditional project and you don't do it right or not enough or whatever, everyone says, yes, if the architecture is not done right, we end up in the zone of chaos. If the requirements are incomplete, we end up in the zone of chaos. But if you take an agile development model for a complex system where there are no real requirements, guess where you're ending up? Yes, in a very agile mode, and it's a kind of bug mountain. You know these projects? Where it goes to the customer gives you back 5,000 tickets, and you're very agile in getting rid of these bug tickets. Yeah, there was also the idea of, you know, a 900-pound man goes to the doctor and says he has back pain. What is the first question you ask? No.
Is insurance private or public?
No, the first question is, how on earth is it possible to get 900 pounds? And that's with these projects. You look at these projects with these bug mountains, you say, how on earth can you get 15,000 bug entries? How is that possible? Okay, so the first thing, user stories are not requirements. So the no-go is user stories are requirements. Don't fall for this trap. Ever. User stories are part of planning activities. Yeah? So the typical argument is the user story, something X, Y has been implemented, hence these are in the product. That is a very stupid view on systems. Just imagine one user story says, I want the button to be blue, and 5 weeks later, I want the button to be green. So how can these two user stories be in the product? Yeah? Not possible. Yeah. So user stories do not reflect the product, the longer the project runs. This is all true if all these things are completely independent from another, don't influence and don't override. But that's not the case in most development. So requirements reflect the product. They are a property of the product. That's why we do tracing. Tracing is cool. The second is there's a lack of upfront generalization. User stories are very specific. I want this to be in, and guess what? The developers just put this single thing in the simplest possible way. That's cool, right? But in the future, you cannot maintain the system anymore. So it's the simplest solution ever. The system won't work for anything else, and non-functional requirements, system aspects, this is something you don't even need to argue with them because they don't understand that anyway. Of course they're not in, but it's a hard sell. I can tell you, selling system properties to an agilista is next to impossible. Good, the next thing, YAGNI. Who knows this abbreviation?
You ain't gonna need it.
You ain't gonna need it. And, okay, I cite Mrs. Poppendick. And those things called requirements, they are really candidate solutions. Separating requirements from implementation is just another form of handover. So there's no separation between problem space and solution space. Everything is solution. And at another place she writes that the design is really the implementation. So the requirements is really the design, the requirements are really the implementation, the design is really the implementation, and of course all tests are all the same. Yeah? So basically this says don't architect. Good. If you want changeability, the architecture is the solution. That's the only weapon you have in a project. Variability planning and all these kinds of things. Agile projects need good impact analysis. So an agile project needs more architecture and more tracing. Because if you are very fast with very small changes, you need to do impact analysis in a very quick way. You need to be, you don't, in a big system, it takes 1 week to analyze a customer request. If you take 1 week and you have 2 weeks iterations, that's madness. So an agile project needs to be much more rigorous in tracing, architecting, and designing for change. So they need more architecture, not less. Good. Gold plating is of course not okay, but rejecting the concept of generalization is just bad engineering. And you can do whatever mode and method you want. If the outcome is bad, it's bad engineering. It's that simple. So this is one of these advices you read in the books that just kill you. Good. There's a sentence from Weinberg. He says, a product may happen to be software, but software is never a product. So, because people are always focused about code. Now I have something working, but a product is much more. It has market analysis, training material, maintenance planning, all these kind of things that belong to a product. So software is never a product. Good. Here is a link. It's unfortunate in German, but it's a really cool article. The role of architecture in the Scrum process. A must read for those who can read German. Good. There are 2 forms of complexity. I put that here because I assume I know why they're saying this, you ain't gonna need it thing. And Bertrand Meyer in his book called it linguine and lasagne complexity. So lasagne complexity is additive. So the features are simple and you can just add them. Some, I don't know, additional workflow in a web-based system, and all these workflows don't have anything in common and are never executed in parallel, and things like that. That's perfect. Multiplicative is complexity is when the things are already complicated and they can interact with each other. Performance, 2 views should not be executed in parallel, they access the same database, and 1,000 different things. Here we have another quote from Colognet. I can live with something simple that works properly. The complexity can be folded later. And Mr. Cohn said, these days we don't program software module by module. Yeah, because we don't have an architecture, you don't have modules. We program software feature by feature. And so just imagine you're building a house, and the first user story is I want a window, and the second is I want a door, and the third one is I want a basement. And you implement them in that order. because they think, they proclaim that user stories don't have any order. They are ordered on business value. The customer wants a window first. Customer gets the window first. I mean, that's obvious. Business focused. So good luck with that approach. There are also other people. Barry Boehm wrote already in 2004, okay, if Barry Boehm writes something, there's always empirical evidence. Yeah? So they always make studies before going to the public. Good. So he said, experience indicates that low-cost refactoring cannot be dependent upon this project scale up. What a surprise. And my comment here is, people need to be aware of nonlinear effects and relations in system engineering. These are natural laws. You cannot run away. You can ignore them, but it will hurt. It's like, I mean, if you have these people, you can just tell them, okay, go out of the window and see if gravity doesn't exist. And if you fall down and you're dead, you improved the gene pool of humanity. You know, you can also improve the genes by removing people. Good. There's also a nice book. Here, this one explains what complexity actually is. Good, so that is one rant against those that don't see complexity. Good, the next one is take it all. So these say, take it or leave it. I.e., our method only works if applied fully. It's a kind of magic in the combination. If you leave one stone out, the whole building collapses, or so. So the social dynamic behind these is, if the product failed or is in trouble, it didn't follow the model enough. And that is also with process improvements. Once you invested your, 5 million in a new SPICE process, some people are actually convinced, especially those with not enough technical background, that if you follow that process, you're going to succeed. So the point is, if you not succeed, you haven't followed the process, right? So it's a kind of we always win system that you have installed. And that is important because Weinberg already said, if something does not work, do more of it. It's the first law of bad management. So if you already have your people in overtime work, maybe it was not enough overtime work. You need to push harder, harder. Good. My point of view, you should never constrain organizations in their freedom to choose an optimal solution. The bad thing is, that requires trust in employees and expertise, and that is really true. If management now does not trust their employees with coming up with good solutions, they fall for this kind of shit. They will get the assessor who will say, okay, you have not been SPICE 2, 3, 5, I don't care. But you have not done this. And that's a kind of police state. You know, you make the process model a police state. If your project fails, you broke the law. That is the atmosphere in these kinds of companies. Yeah, that is the next no-go, take it all. That is stupid. I take what I need because, you know, my company, I can do whatever I want. Good. The single customer fallacy. They say involve the customer, yeah? Especially XP. The customer should always be directly involved, they say embedded in the project. But is there a customer? Who is the customer? I mean, if you do a web shop for, at a sports club, maybe there is one guy who you could call customer, yeah? But do you honestly think that a real customer assigns a full-time person to a project without decision power? You know, no taxation without representation? Honestly? You honestly think that an automotive OEM will put their domain expert at our premises, get no money for it, and we have full access to this person all day? No. So stakeholders have different and conflicting views. And I ask you what happened to AHP, 5Ys, Pobrioka, and stuff like that. What happens to these things that you actually go out and identify who's using the system, who has interests in the system, all these kinds of things. And if you identify 30 different stakeholders with 30 different views, you come to the idea that you need to do some kind of strategic product planning, which is not an embedded customer. It is good for the customer not to be embedded in most projects, because there is no such thing as a customer. There may be such a thing as a unique money source, yeah, but not one customer. And most projects do not have a customer, the one customer. That's why I like the product owner in Scrum. It's cool. Good. I also have something where I think Agile is good. Refactoring for small things, iterative, incremental, evolutionary, however you want to call it. Time boxing is cool, product owners for the strategic approach, but I've rarely seen projects where the product owner really has full authority. Most of the time they don't. They're just project managers, planners, or whatever. A product owner needs to have full authority. That's really important. Continuous integration, regression testing, and so on. Of course, freezing requirements at the beginning of the iteration is a very strong point. The team can actually focus on what they want to do. You don't go there, oh, today the customer wanted, can you please add, or, you know, they can work undisturbed for 1 month or 2 weeks or whatever. That is brilliant. And self-empowered teams. Good. So much for agile bashing. What is my time?
10 minutes.
Left. Oh, yeah.
If you need longer.
No. So first, some reading. Who doesn't know that one? Mythical Man Month is still as valid as it was 40 years ago. Then Weinberg. Well, the point is, why do I put books here? Because I meet many people who don't know the world before Agile. That is not a joke. Yeah? So there has been good literature, but most people don't know it anymore. So I put books here that sharpen the mind, because we need sharp minds to fight this battle. So here, Weinberg. If you need to read a book about quality software management, all four parts of Weinberg are an absolute must. Okay. Oh yeah, Tom Gilb has a really nice book. Koopman for embedded systems, and Capers-Jones. Yeah. If you look, by the way, if you look at these books, you don't find any stupid, non-iterative waterfall model anywhere. But we come to that. Related to Agile, here Felix Redmill has, this is actually downloadable for free. This was one of the first books about evolutionary delivery. And the nice thing is, he said evolutionary delivery is a cool thing, but it comes with problems. And here are your other problems, and here is how you solve them. Most Agile books say, oh, this is cool, but there's no chapter about problems. You know, it's just, this is cool, that's it. And so this is cool enough because you know about the problems. Barry Byrne already wrote a book about balancing agility and discipline. It is now 11 years old and no one knows it, but it's brilliant. Then there's just one usable book that combines lean and software. It's from Middleton. The first part is kind of stupid, it bashes Spice and CMMI, but the second part is interesting, because if we as assessors were to go to a project and tell the project what he's telling should be lean software development, this project would kill us, because this is so over the top, so strict and so rigorous, unbelievable. Good. Then there's some standard, a medical standard. That's also nice. It's American Association of Medical Instruments or something like that. And they merged the IEC 62304 medical standard with agile development, and the FDA approved it. So this shows how far can you go with agile in a regulated environment. So that's why I think that is interesting. Yeah, Jerry has a book out, very cheap, $10, Agile Impressions. So you have the manifesto and then his comments, good read. And the latest edition is Bertrand Meyer's Agile, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This is a really good book. It's not big, not expensive. Good. So how about agile texts? Agile methods, to make it clear, are a really good contribution. True. If you read these texts, you have a mixture, brilliant stuff, harmless platitudes, freakish advice, and sometimes mixed on the same page. They don't even realize it, probably. They are difficult and contain partisanship, religious favor, which defies rational discourse. So if you meet some of those people in private, they of course admit, yeah, if it's necessary, the team does not have to be co-located. But in the book, you read, the team has to be co-located. Yeah, in private, some of these are much nicer, but the books are the problem. The texts are the problem. And people who are not used to read these things. Intimidation. Established approaches are passé. So all we here in the room with our spice knowledge, I don't know, we're so 90s. We should just, I don't know, kill ourselves. They don't laugh, this is what they say. This is really fundamental. So you all here are waterfall people, tailorists, control freaks, you're waste. In lead terminology, you're all waste. And of course, the take it all or leave it extremism. This is the waterfall. No talk without waterfall. And I haven't seen it on this conference this year, so here's the waterfall. And the point is, why should I feel bad? I said it's the natural order of events. People do most of their daily life with this model. So why should I feel bad if someone tells me I'm waterfall? The point is, if you can do your project using that model, just do it. Because if you go into all this iterative stuff, that adds complexity to your process. And that needs to be justified. So iterative development, if it is not necessary or needed, is waste. So the point is, they need to justify this overhead. This multiple planning and what document has been really used in iteration 5 and how to relate to the others and how do we keep them consistent and all these kinds of things. The next thing is, this is a model. It's meant for educative purposes, to teach people. None of the authors have said that this is how you should do your project. None. Gilb hasn't said that, Brooks hasn't said that, Böhm hasn't said that, no one. So, this is a model, an abstraction. And even if you do iterations, you do it like that, just do it multiple times. So, now let's search for the enemy. Agile is not stated positively. They always say, I'm not this, I'm just maybe less of this, or more of that. So here's the enemy. So, what exactly is the waterfall? Are we the enemy? The waterfall? The bodies? The regulation? The government? So let's read a little. Also my experience, and here is my slogan. The waterfall enemy in its idealized form is an agile invention that has never existed. I have never seen a company in my life using waterfall as a real world model. Have you? Good. So the point is, this is now a very important point.
There's only one area, I think it is when we are in satellite development, especially equipment that flies around the Earth.
The military, yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is, the upper parts,
Yeah,
not the lower parts.
you're right. Yeah, only the upper part. Yeah.
And that is important. So Agile feeds its strength from the opposition to something that never existed.
So I'm a fossil, yes, but I saw real waterfall project on host environments, and they all failed.
Where? Which environment?
In host, you know this old big machines they call host.
Oh, IBM hosts.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this IBM host environment, waterfall was very common, and it was very common that projects failed.
Okay, but was the waterfall seriously a dominant phenomenon that you need to get away with in software engineering? Never. Ever. Software engineering was far ahead from waterfall when the agilists came.
No, you say what German managers, especially in the host area, understood of waterfall. They said we have the requirements that are holy now, we have the design it is holy now, we have the code, you have to test it, and at the end of the food chain the testing had a compressed time scale. That was the German managers made out of the waterfall.
Yeah, but the
That was reality.
software engineering literature already in the 80s was over that. So software engineering as a discipline has never adopted that fully. They're over that for centuries, for decades now.
Yeah, but German managers adopted this in the 90s. I saw these projects running and failing.
You can do this if you like, but the point is this was never the dominant thing.
Yeah.
Never ever. It was never the enemy you should get rid of. So, and this is now important. This is the basis why they can be immune against criticism and why they have so much religious fervor. Because if you have a non-existing enemy, you can attribute all negative things to that enemy that you want. Because it doesn't exist. You can say it's green, it's black, it has a long beard, it has 5 heads, it kills you in 5 minutes. And all of that is true because this enemy doesn't exist. You got that? This is the basis for the why does it feel so religious to discuss with them. This is the reason. Good. Process and method comparison. Just a table. Now comes, this is red. Oh, I should say red. Rearrange that from Böhm. I put Scrum and Lean at the top. Here we have a level of concern, life cycle and main areas, but we immediately see that Scrum is single team, Lean more business systems, and we see here a big gap in these methods. They don't have anything to do with technology. They have something to do with management and risk opportunity. Now we can see XP. XP is very technical, Rational Unified is super technical, even CMMI is technical. I don't know about that, but it's the table from Böhm, so I don't change it. But what he correctly realized is that the models that are currently applied have nothing to do with technology. So, and that made Scrum successful. It's the most common agile method. Oh yeah, we go back. This table is shortened. It's much longer. So there are many more agile things. So why do we associate the term agile with Scrum today? And that is simple. The team setup is easy. At first, the discussion what a Scrum Master really is will never go away. Especially the Scrum Master. Detailed methods of organizing things. It is heavily pushed by certification schemes, of course, which is a way to make lots of money. And it requires no technical knowledge of the organization, the domain, the language, whatever. And that is a big problem. Because these methods shifted from XP, Agile started as XP programming, which was really technical, to purely organizational stuff. And it's the darling of the consultants. Because they don't have any technical expertise usually. And that's why they can use an advertised Scrum. And that's why they cannot use all the other methods. Because that would mean they would actually have to know something. If you look at the attempts how to scale Scrum, or use it for non-software areas like innovation with Scrum, human resources with Scrum, gardening with Scrum. Okay, so there are really critical voices. There are links here, but I can tell one thing. I'm personally, I never had a garden, and I'm probably bad at gardening. Yeah. But this method really means I introduce Scrum, I get better at gardening. Right? I don't know gardening, but I use Scrum, I can do a perfect garden. This is what they claim, basically. So, then they measure it. They said, the organization that, well, we have problems with our communication, so we need better communication. You always need better communication. That's not the point. The consultant says, yeah, introduce Scrum by the book meeting setup. Have you ever seen a project that did Scrum by the book meetings? How much percent of the project is then spent in meetings? Huh? A third? And it always takes the whole team because they're self-empowered. The problem with the role team is that you always have to involve all of them. That is super expensive. So they say we conduct trainings, we perform super frequent coaching. You remember $7,500. We need to do something for that money. You introduce Scrum meetings, but the most important thing is you terminate all established communication channels. And this is where you can kill an organization. Everything which does not fit into the book is not agile, therefore bad, and needs to be cancelled. Also team leads, of course. You get rid of all the team leads. And the next thing is your chief engineers are not interested in working with a Scrum team. So after 6 months, you lose your team leads and you lost all your chief engineers. And now you have Scrum meetings. You have a totally atomic organization afterwards. Good. You use checklists and you say, yeah, the project performs daily stand-ups. This is what you measure. You say the degree of agility or agility is measured by such compliance measures. They do this meeting, they do that meeting, you know. They have iterations, they are short enough. So you make checklists out of these books. The problem is, do you get better communication? You don't know, because you don't measure communication. You only measure that they have a meeting. So this method actually says more meetings is better. Right? If the project is doing fewer meetings, the consultants will say they're not agile enough. Even if they say we don't need that meeting. But it's in the book. So this is a culture that nurtures meetings. Okay. So, from my point of view, focus on outcomes, not output or compliance. An outcome is important. I need better communication, and I don't care how you achieve it, do something. And then the consultant needs to be creative, and come up with a solution that fits my organization. That was tradition. Nowadays, they don't have to do that, so they make it like that. This destroys organizations. If you want to do it the right way, the most successful are those organizations that have an agile management approach to converting. If you have organizations where agile methods are introduced like a waterfall project, huge upfront planning, then this is a disaster. To be successful, small increments, correction made at each increment, step by step. Okay? Oh yeah, the problem with that is, of course, change needs to be actively managed. That needs active managers, and which company has active managers nowadays? I mean, we have financial managers, but most companies don't have managers. Yeah, they have. I don't know that path. This is from Böhm.
Oh, come on.
Böhm is interesting here. He says, if you have qualified people, you can be more agile. If you have large dynamics in the project and the requirements, you should be more agile. If you have a culture that says chaos is cool, you can be more agile. If you have a culture that says order is cool, so culture is important, because that means that you in your German automobile company may be a little bit agile, but don't do this in India. So depending on where your parts are, you need to adopt different approaches. Then they say, okay, the size of the project. So if you have 300 and more working on a software project, he said, agile is really complicated. And criticality. There are more factors, but he considers these 5 because he had data about these 5. Okay, good. We have these 5. The selection of methods depends on business needs, culture, organization, project, and people. And this is a very grown-up statement. Good. Balanceability. Here. The SPI manifesto. People, motivate, learning organization, dynamic, adaptable, change. Yeah, it's basically the same. How funny is that? It just needs continuous management of change and improvement. Management, it's the only underlined word. And of course, since we don't have managers, this continuous management is a problem. Here is from the AMI medical standard. They put increment stories in the right point and say where to put it. Again, balanced. Okay? Good. What's the time?
How long do you need?
Oh, the last one.
That was not the right question, sorry.
It was one question because I think it's very interesting and you are still willing to listen a bit. Or
Yeah, it's the last one. So the future of Agile. First, we drop the capital A. Then we drop the term Agile altogether. Agile methods will be successful if and when we stop seeing them as anything other than normal, sensible, professional methods of developing software. It's that easy. Yeah, maybe it's balanceability and I get the money next time. Maybe I get rich, I don't know. And this is what you get when you Google balanceability. It's a small boy, and you know, if you leave the small boy alone, in the end, small boy will ride the bike. Unfortunately, consultant comes and says to the boy, "Do Spice bike." Okay, boy has to learn again, and then the next consultant comes, "Do Scrum bike." The boy needs to start from scratch again. This is how we treat our development teams, you know. They are able to ride that bike if we let them. Yeah. Yeah.
Questions? Thank you very much for this true or brave presentation. And now it's time for questions. So first I'd like to ask you for questions.
I have another very jokey one for you. When you come up to the classical assessments, you have two major models. It is CMMI and it is SPI. And this was enough for the industry long time ago. If you Google agile maturity models, you will find 40.
Yeah.
So each agile guru provides its own agile maturity
And
model.
you need to pay for it if you want to use it.
And I made an analysis. 95% of these models is a very badly structured, very bad rearrangement of CMMI or SPIs. Because
Yeah.
the content is completely the same.
And most of them have 5 levels.
Yes!
Why? Because they say, okay, we can also do it, or
Yes, they are complete, they are mostly oriented at CMMI, they have the CMMI level structure. And when you look at the content, they are very funny. They have one level composed of activities and another one level composed of outcomes. They can do it, they are agile. So this could be another funny slide for this.
I had it.
You had it.
The total thing is 100 slides.
Oh, okay, cool.
I needed 30 minutes.
For next year we may have part 2. Some more questions. Richard, what's going on with you?
Well, I was review of this presentation before, but I have one question to Alex. What is your experience? Because there are, I'm not mentioning names, but there are big companies that don't know this route, yeah? And I have seen tenders which they make, yeah, for kind of, they call it innovation support. Yeah? And when we looked at the writing of this last paper, the tender of this company, it looked as if they write it out, do these meetings quickly, but they don't understand what cycles of communication they need. Yeah? So it was actually then you had to call them and identify what kind of interlinkage of cycles they actually had in mind to understand how they connect software development with system development, with mechanic development. So what's your impression about this kind of communication cycles? When they set it up, how chaotic is it?
To make it simple, you know, we have, if you take a chess game,
Yeah.
is that complicated?
When you understand the rules and exercise the bit, I was playing chess.
Yeah, is that complicated, playing chess?
Well, for me, it depends, but if you think always 5 possible laws before what can happen, then
Exactly. And now I compare that to a big software project. So as project lead, playing the software project game is much more complicated than playing chess.
Yeah.
So you need control structures. If
Yeah.
you don't have control structures, you have no idea what the project is doing.
Yes.
This is another talk, but the basic idea is, what they say is get rid of the control structures, and they do not measure outcome. That is really a problem.
Yeah.
So these projects may start funny and happy with the consultants and end up in failure. This is not. I've seen many projects end in failure because of that. It's just there's no one going to conferences and says, "My company went agile and is now bankrupt." No one's saying that because the consultants do the conferences. Another big company in Germany is now doing such a conference, and of course you only hear success stories. And most of them are not even in their 2-3 years working. They are just started implementing stuff, and of course you go to the consulting conference.
Well, eventually they seem to grow up. Jeff Sutherland is quoted to say that that Scrum seems to work best in level 3 organizations and above.
Of course it works.
Yeah, sure.
Everything
but
works.
he is also quoted from him.
Sorry?
Yes, but it also comes as a surprise that it was him who said it.
There's no problem in merging agile.
No.
But the point is, this balancing thing requires skill,
Yeah, sure.
expertise. That also Alexander from VW yesterday. Yeah,
T-shaped people.
he knows what he's doing.
Exactly.
So it sounded very good. There is, substance.
My point was just that let's hope that they grow up eventually.
No, they don't grow up because you cannot grow up in a pure agile environment. You can't. This is not a joke. This is made for American companies. People get there, are retired at 35, 40. They never learn it. You cannot learn good software engineering, if you work in such an organization.
Okay.
That's a big issue for young developers.
Yeah, I had a similar observation on this tender, because the place where they do it is a very complicated system with a few hundred functions which have to be coordinated to run the system. And they don't ask, when they ask for the qualification of the Scrum Master, for the qualification to understand the system. They ask for the qualification of communication. And I cannot imagine to take the responsibility of a system that can kill people, yeah? That someone takes the responsibility to manage another project without understanding what the product does. So that I found funny in this kind of tender. Because do you really believe that would work? That would fit to Mr. Böhm's observation, yeah? That there is an empty hole of technology and it's only the management of meetings. Yeah? And that in some cases might work, but in a safety critical environment where you depend on lives, like cars, planes, nuclear power plants, I'm not sure. I agree, yeah.
So some more questions, otherwise you get some last words from my side. So, from my experience being in the automotive industry for quite a long time, I also had experience with consultants. And what you told is really sometimes really the case that you are a really honest person, and it's very good that you are giving this presentation in this style here at a conference. And but really, there are consultants, as you mentioned, gardening. They do not know gardening, but they are consulting gardening. Yeah. And also in the software domain, there are consultants coming from the mechanical domain and selling software consultancy. And if you don't know this, or if you find it out, first thing is somebody may tell you, "Oh, this is a dangerous person." Yeah. So if you escalate, you may have a problem. But there I would like to remind you on the keynote from Vienna from Mr. Tolfi, I think what's the name, to be integral. So if you have the evidence that you are right, stay grounded and fight for that change. Otherwise, I think I could not look in the face. So really, we made a change. Also in our company, we had a consultant. It was a hard one because he had many friends. But at the moment, I feel good. And I never felt bad. Maybe I had 1 or 2 sleepless nights. But it was the right choice. And I think the industry needs more people like Andreas Much to really stand up and say, yes, it is fashion at the moment, but it's maybe not good. So thanks for your keynote.